Welcome to Six Tackles with Gus, part 2 of our season preview for 2025. Phil Gould is on the ground in Vegas as you listen to this, but by some miracle of modern technology, he's next to me in the studio as well. Welcome to part 2, Gus.
Matthew, how you doing?
I'm good.
Excellent.
How's Vegas?
Great.
You enjoying it?
Great.
Some breaking news for our legion of listeners. We're going to have a new segment this year. I haven't run it by you, but I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
We're going to call it It's a Funny Game Rugby League.
It is a funny game.
And we're going to have to come up with something funny each week.
Right.
Like a quirky rugby league happenstance, whether it be in the past or something, preferably something you've seen at the weekend. What would you cite as a funny quirk you've seen recently?
Don't leave it up to me. Don't leave it
Anything
up to
in
me.
particular come to mind?
No.
It is a funny game. It is indeed a funny game. Hey, we're not going to muck around. Let's get straight into our part 2 preview. We've still got our hat.
Yep. Okay, we've got the Brisbane Bronco.
Good start.
Brisbane Bronco.
Good start.
What happened last year?
That was an implosion, wasn't it?
From grand final to where they finished, and they finished up with 10 wins, 26 points, but conceded over 600 points. In the previous podcast, I was looking at all these teams that need to improve defensively, and your defensive record is a sign of your attitude, a sign of your system, a sign of commitment to each other. It's the hardest part of the game. Defence is the hardest part of the game. You've got to get that right. If you're conceding over 600 points, you're not playing finals football. It's as simple as that. Conceded over 600, they were grand finalists the previous years.
Incredible.
They've obviously got the flair and attack. They've got the talent, but things just fell apart for them terribly last year. Obviously, they lost their coach at the end of the year. They brought in Michael Maguire, the Origin-winning coach.
Ben Hunt's back.
Ben Hunt's back. So in the player market, they've bought Ben Hunt and they've bought Hayes Perham, who's a utility player, played with the Bulldogs the last couple of years. They've lost Tristan Saylor, Corey Oates and Jordan Pereira. So there hasn't been a great transition in the playing roster. So it's virtually new coach. That's the big recruitment, the new coach.
And he's been absolutely giving it to him.
Well, from all reports. I mean, if you look at the trial game, which obviously was a lot of the emerging kids coming through, it's a good sign in their physicality and in their fitness, how they handled it. They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant, that's often a reflection on how the whole club is going to look leading into the trials. The Brisbane Broncos in 2023, well, they only had 1,700 odd appearances in their top 30, so they had a lot of young fellas. It was a younger roster. Brisbane this year up over 2,200 games, obviously with Ben Hunt coming in. They gained a lot of experience there, and Adam Reynolds had some injury issues last year. Reynolds and Hunt in the halves. Wow. A load of game managing experience in those two. And then you've got the X-Factor Reece Walsh at the back. Your Stags and your Cobbos and these sorts of players. They've got a willing forward pack that work hard. There was no real reason for what happened last year, other than the fact that they just didn't recover from the grand final loss the previous year. And remember, in 23, they were 2 minutes away from winning a premiership. Like 2 minutes away from carrying the shield.
Yeah.
They led by enough to win a Melbourne Cup with 20 minutes to go in that game.
We were looking at the record books for biggest wins.
Before Cleary pulled their pants down and got them. So that last 15 minutes of that grand final, I think, just had a massive effect on the psychology and the mentality of the team. And whether they just kissed it off and thought they would bounce back and everything would be okay, we'll get that grand final right in September. We won't let that happen to us again. Well, they didn't get anywhere near the grand final in September. They didn't even get to September football. A little bit of recovery in the middle part of the season, but then it sort of fell apart again. It's bad when you lose your coach.
Felt like a lot of it was around discipline, and probably that was the driving force behind the move for Maguire, the disciplinarian.
Yeah. I think there was a reliance on talent. I think there was just a reliance on the talent of the individual player and not so much on coming together as a group and having a system for their football. there's a saying that coaches use these days that the system beats the talent. Talent can win because that's what talent does. Talent got them to the grand final the previous year. But the lack of a system meant that they fell apart under pressure in 24. With Michael Maguire, he's all system. He's all about the system, and he's all about the effort areas of the game, and he's all about the team-mindedness and all that. So I would imagine for a lot of those young fellas, they wouldn't have experienced an off-season like the one they've had under Michael Maguire. Early signs are good, but it's got to transition into a long season, and they're the ones. They're the big question mark. I mean,
they're good enough to win the comp.
Of course they are. Last year they finished 12th. I've got some friends who are very, very big on football ratings and what they do, and they rate the top three teams in this competition: Melbourne Storm, Penrith Panthers, and Brisbane Broncos in that order, and then a huge gap to the rest. And they rate the next 12 or 13 pretty much equal.
Really?
Equal.
Wow.
So there's not much between the next 12 or 13 teams, and even the ones behind that, can easily bounce up into that group. But they've clearly got Melbourne, Penrith, and Broncos on top. Now, it's not often you have a team that's run 12th one year that's selected in the top three for the following year.
But you can see why.
And that's where they should be.
Yeah.
That's where they should be. And I think in Adam Reynolds and Hunt and Reece Walsh, I mean, those two boys will drive Reece Walsh mad. They'll keep putting him in good positions, and he can win games for them. It's as simple as that. And they've got the finishing power of those other fellas. Some of their younger fellas have some football under their belt now. And it's loaded with talent. I think Michael Maguire gives them the hardness in the system, and if they don't break down, if they buy in with what the coach says, they are a genuine top four contender. Premiership contender, well, 12 months ago they were. They're one of the top sides in the competition. They're one of the sides that can win this if they get everything right, which is why Maguire's there, I guess. I think Ben Hunt's a big boost for them. Interesting to see what they'll do with the dummy half role. Good player, Billy Walters.
He's been terrific, hasn't he?
He's terrific. He's a good player.
Corey Pakes are still there. I think they were shopping him around.
They've always got good kids coming through. They've always got good kids.
Is Blake Moses still at Brisbane?
Yeah. I think he's injured at the moment.
And they've got Kobe Black, haven't they?
He's a bit young yet.
19-year-old halfback.
Yeah. He's just a bit young yet.
Hey, riddle me this. Look, this is stargazing, right? But let's just say the Broncos are chugging along and all's going well. They're winning games, and Ezra Mann becomes available again. Does he come back in? I mean, he owes them a bit, doesn't he?
Well, he certainly does. He owes himself, his family, and he owes the game. So he's.
Do you think they'll race him back if they're going okay?
Don't know. Can't answer you.
Yeah.
Can't answer you.
And the signing of Hunt.
What do you do with Adam Reynolds and Hunt if you're going to bring Ezra Mann back in?
Well, presumably Hunt plays hooker.
There are injuries to come. Well, I don't think Hunt wants to play hooker. It'll be interesting to see how things go there. Ezra Mann is obviously a talent. He stepped out of the crease last year and he's paid his penalty for it. And I'm sure it's been highly embarrassing for him, and hopefully he learns his lesson. But the game's given him a time to come back in, and the Broncos will bring him back in. They haven't sacked him. They've decided to persevere with it. And let's hope he turns his life around and gets it right and doesn't go down that road again. Because he's a football talent. There's no risk in the world. But, the Broncos have got to help there.
Good pack. Gee, it's a good pack, isn't it? Payne Haas, Carrigan.
Good side.
That Willison played really good in the All-Stars game.
He's a monster.
Ben Takura, the biggest man in the world.
Yeah. They can win the comp. They can win the comp. But we thought that last year. I think Michael Maguire. Well, he'll make them or break them. Put it that way.
Crash or crash through.
Yeah, he'll make them or break them. But those that go with him and come out the other side are going to be better for it. So they may as well all get on board. If they get on board, they can win a comp. Bulldog.
You know much about them?
Bulldogs.
Righto, I'll stand the stage to you. You're entitled to be optimistic after that terrific effort last year.
Yeah,
They must be bouncing around the place.
They were great.
Yeah.
So, I've been talking about defensive records and in your likelihood of playing the top 8. Well, they had the third best defence in the competition last year.
Yeah.
Which was an extraordinary improvement because the year before they had the worst.
Was that was obviously the main focal point, given the rapid improvement?
Yep. Yeah. Well, look, the system didn't change. I think Cameron Ciraldo came in 23, which was a difficult time for the club. And, I explained that to him before he got there. And, he was uncompromising in the way he wanted to approach it. And I think the club is better for that. And nothing much changed. The people changed, which was really good. But in the player market, probably Satili Tupanua is our major buy for 2025. Inari Tuala, very impressive Inari Tuala coming down from Newcastle. Unfortunately, last week broke his foot. He's going to be out for 3 months. Marcelo Montoya, who's a former young Bulldog, who's well performed at the Warriors, but we've brought him in to replace. We lost Josh Adokar and we needed some outside back depth. There's Ion Maeu as a new recruitment just in February. We got him across from the Warriors.
My goodness, he's an imposing individual.
And Tom Amone, who's been the best front rower in England for the last couple of years, and he's played NRL out here, and he's come back as well. So, it's not there are some significant buys there, but we didn't go into the player market a lot. We've lost Josh Adokar, Poasa Fumasili, Kiriani Katonga, Liam Knight, Joash Papali'i, Chris Patolo, Jordan Semrani, Jarrell Skelton and Zane Tedavant. So a lot of young blokes there and a couple of older blokes that we brought in to help us out. So we're relying mainly on playing the longer game with development of younger players coming through. You saw a few of them through the trials. There's some real hopefuls there, but our main side is a good side. Been very happy with it, happy with the way we've recruited over the last couple of years, happy with the way several players have developed. This time last year, we had the second youngest, we had the youngest, and we had the second least experienced team in the NRL. We only had 1,600 NRL games leading into last season, and for a lot of the season, we were the youngest and least experienced team in the competition, but did well. This year, we've gone to over 2,000, so we've picked up a lot of experience, obviously, because a lot of fellas got games last year, and fellas made their debut and came through, and then we've picked up Satili Tupanua too. Who's got a little injury at the moment. He hasn't trained for a few weeks and probably in doubt for round 1. Jacob Kiraz won't play round 1 and Ari Tuala's out for a few months. So already picked up some injury problems leading into the start of the season, but still staying the course on development, taking a longer-term approach to it. Got some really good young kids coming through. One of the factors was we trained a squad of around just under 40 or just over 40 players through the whole pre-season program. And all those young fellas that came up for their first off-season with the NRL handled it really well. Like handled the training and handled the workload and handled the education and everything well. The coach was really impressed, which means the academy's doing its job. Mm-hmm. The academy program's doing its job. We're producing kids and getting them ready for an NRL coach to teach them how to play NRL. Really, really happy with our side, happy with the way they've trained during the off-season. We seem, because there's been so little change to our roster, this is the first time since I've been there that there's been, you come back in for the new season and there's a familiarity. Usually we're introducing 20 new blokes and blokes have gone and blokes have come in and some were ready and some weren't. And some of the kids we promoted, they weren't ready and they were coming into a poor team, which made it difficult for them. But right at the moment, I think we're heading in the right direction. Club's really strong at the moment commercially, and the membership was certainly ignited last year after playing finals football for the first time in 7 years. And I'm hoping they can do it again. If we can have a similar season to what we had last year, I'd be extremely pleased.
Yeah. You had, I think it's well noted, you had a chat with Ben Hunt but didn't pursue that. Was that a vote of confidence in who you got in your playmaking positions? Yeah,
well, those approaches sort of came from Ben's management, looking at options for him because he was living in Sydney at the time and he had young kids starting school and it probably was easier for him to spend more time in Sydney and then go. He was obviously looking to get out of the Dragons, but I think they were I think he spoke to the Roosters. I think they spoke to a few clubs. But where Ben was in his career, at the stage of his career, and where we were, we just decided that we'd stick with what we had. Ben's a really good player, and we really liked him as a bloke. But Toby Sexton's our halfback at the moment, and we're sort of backing Toby to develop. He's still only 24 years of age. He did a terrific job for us last year. Got some young halves, Cassius Tia and Mitch Woods and Joey O'Neill, that have been in the system now for a couple of years, and we're hoping that they emerge over the next 2 or 3 seasons. We're not going to rush them. We've got some exciting young outside backs and some young forwards, but the bottom line for us is to keep our best 14 or 15 on the field each week and perform to the best of our ability. And if we can do that, we hope we're competitive. The 2 games last year that gave me a lot of hope. I know we won 14 games or something, and one stage there we won 8 out of 10, but it was 2 losses that showed me we were on the right direction, or really 3. The 2 main losses were Melbourne in Melbourne. We went down and we led Melbourne, a full-strength Melbourne side. We led them to the last couple of minutes early in the season and just got nutted. And there was another game later in the year where we played Penrith at Penrith, and we were beaten 16-10. We were probably never going to win it, but we were never going to get beaten by much. And we matched them physically after the game. And speaking to a few of the Penrith players, I said they were good. They were really physically up for it, and they were good. And that gave us a lot of confidence then to go through on that run towards the back end of the season and get into the finals. Last year got a bit long for us. It sort of petered out a little bit at the back end. We got a few injuries and a couple of suspensions at a bad time. And
but gee, you put up a good show in your first finals appearance.
Well, that was that was the other loss I want to talk about, was the Manly loss, which I feel like we didn't lose. I felt
it was a super game.
It went against us on the scoreboard, and probably with a little more experience, we'd have closed that one out. And it took 2 champion players to beat us. I mean, Cherry Evans and Trebojevic beat us with a couple of big plays at the back end. But you couldn't have been more proud in a losing performance to get to the finals for the first time in 7 years and perform like that. The other thing was the crowds. I mean, we had 45,000 people for the Parramatta game on the King's birthday. We had over 30,000 several times at the back end of the year for home games. We had 50,000 for the semi-final. I mean, our fan base is extraordinary. And if the Bulldogs can get on a run, it's our 90th year. We've started the year off with a great recognition and celebration about our 90th year. And New Jersey, things are looking up commercially off the field. We just need to keep backing it up on the field. We need our good players to be good, and I'm hopeful that they will. I think the likes of Crichton and Kickow and Burton and these fellas have brought a lot to us. Satili Tupouniua has brought a lot to us. Kurt Mann's brought a lot to us. Kurt Mann's a valuable player, very experienced at this stage of his career, and he didn't play the last month of football with us last year, and I think we really missed him. But we showed we could win on the road, and we could win at home, and we could ignite our fan base, and we defended well. And that was the big thing for me, was to concede only 430 points for the season, when I think the previous year conceded nearly 800, it was 770 or something like that. So that's where you've got the commitment and the teamwork, and if they can keep that defensive mindset up and find a few more points each week, then we'll be competitive.
Go the Dogs. Bad news is I've tipped you to make the top 4. Sorry about that.
Have you? You're such a good punter too.
Yeah, I'm going good. That's why I've quit. Next.
Penrith Panther. Penrith Panther.
Now, do you think Blaze Talangi will come straight into the 6? Because they got Brad Schneider there.
Yeah. That'll be an interesting selection leading into the first game. Look, they bought Blaze Talangi for a reason. When you look at and this is the beauty of having a great development system and pathway system, they've gone out into the market and they've bought Asaya Papali'i and Blaze Talangi, like an experienced forward, fills a little bit of a hole for them, and they've lost Fisher Harris, and Blaze Talangi, who's an up-and-coming utility back, 5'8", Now, Blaze Talangi has gone to Panthers to play 5'8". That's why he went there, to play with Nathan Cleary, to replace Jarome Luai. Not sure what the Panthers' mindset is with that, but I can't see why they wouldn't do that. If that's what they're bought him for, then may as well start him off at the start and get going. He's got Nick Kenny, he's got Nathan Cleary, and he's got Dylan Edwards in the spine with him. He's got some really good experienced forwards in front of him. Asaya Yeo virtually runs the game anyway. the likes of Liam Martin and Sorensen and Papali'i and these fellas on the edges. You've got your workmen like, Liam Henrys and Lindsay Smiths and Moses Leota and those fellas. Their wingers come in and do so much work. They've won 4 premierships in a row for a reason. They're the top side in the competition. And for mine, they're still favourites to win this year. So I can't see why they can't start Blaze Talangi off straight away.
Okay.
Now, in their system, they've got some other young players as well, but I think the sooner they sort of settle on that and get him going, the better. He can play other positions, of course, but he's gone there to play 5'8", and I'll be surprised if they don't play him 5'8" from the get-go. But it's still a strong side. I think I said last week, you asked me on the yes-no whether or not they could, or Jerome Luai would be the straw that broke the camel's back, that they couldn't win without him. Well, they can. They've got 5 or 6 of the best players in the world in their side. Tell me another roster that boasts that.
I can't.
There is no.
Oh, well, Melbourne.
Well, Melbourne have got 3 or 4.
Yeah.
They haven't got 5 or 6 or 7.
No, that's right.
Which the Panthers have got. And the Panthers have got such familiarity. There's hardly any change to their roster. I mean, James Fisher-Harris is their biggest loss. Sania Taruva, but they'll replace him. Sai Yongi, he really hadn't played much he hadn't played first grade anyway. Tyron Peachy was retiring. So, it's Jerome Luai and James Fisher-Harris, would be devastating losses for any team in the competition, bar Penrith. I think they'll overcome that as well. It's Melbourne's comp to lose after last year and the fact that their roster's so strong still, and Penrith have lost these couple of key players, but don't write Panthers off. They can make it 5, don't worry. Whoever beats them will win the comp. I think they're a champion team, and if you're going to have to beat them, you're going to have to beat them on grand final day. So if Melbourne or Sharks or Roosters or Manly want to win a competition, they're going to have to beat Penrith to do it. I still think they're the measuring stick in the competition, and they're a second to none chance. Going to be very, very hard to beat.
There endeth the lesson.
West Tiger. West Tiger.
Benji was sitting on the sideline in the second half yesterday laughing. Not last week. He was laughing.
Yeah. He's enjoying himself.
That's good, isn't it?
Having a good time. So let's have a look at their roster changes for a start. We know where they've finished for the last few years, all right? And I think they're better than where their position on the ladder goes. I mean, it's not as though they get absolutely lapped every week, is it? I mean, they're in some games and just sort of lose it, through lack of experience at times. But they've bought Jack Bird, experience, Royce Hunt, size and experience, Jerome Luai, that's a master stroke. Terrell May's a great buy. Sanua Tariva, the outside back at Penrith who can play fullback and play centre and play wing, is a tremendous player. And Jarrell Skelton from the Bulldogs. There's nothing there in their losses. Asaya Papali'i, Aiden Caesar was retiring anyway. Jaden Sullivan hadn't played much first grade. Stefano Atukamano went to the Melbourne Storm and decided he needed to go to a stronger club and hopefully learn his football. And I think that's more than adequately been made up by the recruitment of Terrell May and Royce Hunt and Jack Bird. So I think they've replaced him.
I like that you single them out because obviously Luai is the headline grabber, but I really like what they've done in the pack.
Yeah. So those fellas, and Sania Taruva is like having another forward.
Yeah.
Like he'll get in and run for 250, 300 metres every week. He's like Brian Toto, and it's great to have wingers that can come in and do all that work for you. But in Jack Bird, Royce Hunt and Terrell May, they've got 3 blokes who can replace Stefano Atukamano. Stefano Atukamano is a supreme talent. He's a young fella on the way up. He'll go to the Melbourne Storm, he'll learn his trade and he'll do well. But body-wise and work rate-wise and experience-wise, they've replaced him easily. Right? They've gone, And Jerome Luai, I think, I love Jerome and I love what he brings to a football team. I also love what people don't understand about him is that he's a football nerd, he's a football student, he loves the game, he knows the game, he studies the game very, very closely. He will take over that side. I think they've got the best young teenage talent I've ever seen in young Lachlan Galvin. Jareem Buller is an outstanding talent there at the back.
Uppy Coruscant.
Appy Coruscant and Taylor De Silva, two really great young hookers. They've got a willing forward pack, and, like Terrell May and Royce Hunt and Jack Bird will fire those fellas up. They've got, outside backs is probably their Achilles heel, but Sania Taruba will fill up in one of those holes. Some of those other young fellas have got a lift, and they've got some great young talent coming through. I mean, there's some really good kids in their pathway system that are coming through.
So who will the other winger be? Charlie Staines, maybe? Then Dewey and Olam.
Adam Dewey's to come back.
Centers.
Justin Olam's to come back. So look, I'm going to say it. I think they can make the 8.
Hey-ya!
I think they can make the 8. I think Jerome Luai is such an influence for me. And with what I'm anticipating with Lachlan Galvin and his development, what I'm anticipating with Jareen Buller, Lachlan Galvin, Jerome Luai and Appy Coruscant.
Good spine.
That's a huge spine.
Yeah.
They've brought in Terrell May and Royce Hunt, and they've brought in Jack Bird, who are experienced and tradesman-like players.
Samuela Fainu can play.
Yeah. Samuela Fainu. They got...
Polly?
They can make the 8.
There's your headlines. Punters, line up.
They can make the 8. I'll be disappointed if they don't make the 8. I'm on the Tiger bandwagon. Tigers will make the 8. That's how much faith I've got in Jerome Luai, and I think he'll be great for Benji Marshall. I think he'll be a great asset to the young coach Benji Marshall, and
you could see them working so well together.
Yeah, similar personalities, similar types, and Benji was his hero as a kid growing up. I think he said he played in an All-Stars game or something with him at some time, or played in a game with him when he was younger. I have such confidence in Jerome Luai that I'm confident the West Tigers, and with the way they've purchased, West Tigers can make the leapfrog and they can make the 8. I think they're going to be one of the excitement machines of this year's competition.
Well, I think everyone, regardless of who you support, would like to see that.
Well, I jump off the lounge every time they win. I like watching them play. And I don't like to see teams been down for so long and they've been picked apart a little bit. But I think the Tiger fights back this year.
And you know what? A few of those, the underbelly of the club actually went pretty good against the Dragons in the trial game.
Yeah. Look. Last year, they were the least experienced team in the NRL. They've improved that by about 300 games, but they've improved it with class. I think Terrell May's a great buy for them. I think Royce Hunt and Jack Bird give them valuable experience and grunt up front. I think Sania Taruba is an energizer. He's the energizer bunny. He's an energizer around training. He's an energizer in games. He's a confident kid. He's a winner. And he's like having another forward on the field. He's going to make so many metres for you. And Jerome Luai, the best is yet to be for him. I've always said if there had been no Nathan Cleary ever existed, he would have been the Panthers halfback all those years. Jerome plays the role he plays because he's got a Nathan Cleary to play with. You're going to see a new Jerome Luai over the next 4 or 5 years at the West Tigers.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The followers of Six Tackles with Gus, the declaration has been made. The Tigers will play in the finals. Lock it in, baby. We got that on tape, don't we? Very good. Send it to Benji.
Dolphin. Yes.
No, Bennett. So it's a bit of a poison chalice over the years, hasn't it? The coach that takes over from Wayne, but he's an experienced coach. Christian Wolff, he's been around a long, long time. He's the Tongan international coach.
Yep.
And they've got a pretty steady squad up there. So they've added Daniel Safiti.
Yes.
Who else have they added?
Max Fagay.
Oh, yes, Max Fino. Yep.
The boy from North Queensland.
Fino Fuiaki. And Junior Tupou, the big beast on the wing.
They're good players.
That's very good shopping.
And I've said for some time, the Dolphins have got some young players you haven't heard of yet. Peter O'Sullivan, their original talent scout, went out and bought a lot of kids looking for the future as well. And he bought some senior players like Experience-wise, when they came into the competition, they were one of the most experienced in the competition because of all the older players they had. In fact, leading into the 24 season, they had 2,813 NRL games in them.
They're the newest club.
With all those older forwards. They were the newest club. Now they dropped back to 2,200. So they've lost 600 games of NRL experience. But at 2,200, it's still pretty good. It's still pretty good. Everything coming out of the Dolphins has been positive. All they're prepared to say is since Bennett's gone, it's different. Christian Wolf has put his own mark on it.
I wonder how it's different.
Yeah.
I wonder what that means.
Wayne's Wayne. Wayne's got his own way, and Wayne's football is Wayne's football. It's been the same way for a long time. But I think the young halfback is going to keep improving. I really like him. I like the Dolphins. I like the brand of football that they play. And, in the 2 seasons that they've been in, I think they've been extraordinary. I mean, they weren't far behind a top 8 finish last year. Their for and against was pretty much identical, 577 to 578, which is, finals worthy. If you're around that mark there, on your for and against, you're going to be in the finals contention. I think they're finals contender this year. And I think Christian Wolf, having spent a couple of years with Wayne Bennett, has been crucial. And he's an experienced coach in his own right. He's had great success over in the UK. The fellas that come back from Tongan camps and all that all rave about him.
He's a good salt of the earth bloke, Christian Wolf.
Yeah, and he's a footy bloke. And talking to people in and around the Dolphins camp over the last 6 months, they said they're not saying anything other. It's different without Wayne, but it's good. Wayne was great for them, and Wayne got them on the map and did what he did with them. I thought they had 2 great years. They had some extraordinary wins during that time in the first couple of years. Really put the Dolphins on the map. But Christian Wolf is his own man. He's doing it his own way, and I expect the Dolphins to have a very, very good season. I think they're very much top 8 contenders.
Yes. Where's Tom Flegler at? Anyone know yet?
Yeah, I don't think I haven't heard any positive news. It's all been fairly negative.
Heard nothing.
Yeah, which is a shame. I don't exactly know what the injury is. I think it's sort of some nerve damage there. And there's been a few players with a similar sort of injury over the years. It's a shame because he was such a great talent coming through. Dolphins, a great attacking team.
They got the hammer, baby.
Hammerso.
And he's got speed.
They've got strike power.
So you're saying that they're a fringe 8 side. There's going to be a lot around the fringe of the 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it'll get down to winning the close games. We're all going to play in 12 or 14 games that are decided by 4 points or less. You've got to win them. Parramatta Eel.
There's another one.
Parramatta
Eels. Big changes at Para.
Yeah.
Might I say, as exclusively predicted by Gus on this very podcast, middle of last year, that the King would be at the Dragons.
Yeah. So on the losses and gains, let's look at what they've lost. What's left the club? Matt Arthur, Dejan Arzi, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Zach Seeney, Clint Gutherson, Morgan Harper, Makahesi Makatoa, Jariah Momasia, Lorenzo Matalo, Ofahiki Ogden, Kai Rodwell, Ethan Sanders, Maker Sivo and Blaze Talangi. That's a lot of players leaving. What they've replaced them with is Josh Adokar. They lost Josh Adokar, Dean Hawkins from South Sydney, a young halfback, Asai Longi, a young fullback on the rise, Kitiani Katonga, a young back rower from the Bulldogs, Zach Lomax was probably their major purchase, Joash Papali'i, Jordan Samrani, a young outside back from Canterbury, Ronald Volkman, trialled very well, Ronald. He's a good player. He had that year off with shoulder surgery, and Jack Williams from Cronulla.
Have shot well.
Yeah, so Adokar and Zach Lomax are probably the 2 marquee signings, and then a lot of hopeful young kids that are sort of emerging into the NRL and looking to go their way from there. They've lost, obviously, some experience on the score of NRL games played. Going into the 2024 season, where are they, Parramatta? They had 2,200 NRL games in their roster. This year, they're exactly the same, 2,200. So on the score of experience, they're kind of like for like with players they've brought in and players they left. But what happened to them last year? It just fell away, didn't it?
Oh, yes.
It's sort of a breaking point. They finished in 15th position. They conceded over 700 points. And that's the challenge for the new coach, Jason Riles, is that defensive mind. But a lot of that's that attitude. A lot of that's being connected. A lot of that's, resilience, which they didn't have. They were missing Mitch Moses for a long period last year, but defensively they just fell away terribly in games. And it wasn't. There was just a sense of it all got a bit too hard for them last year. And then they lost their coach, and that was the excuse. And the season sort of petered out. They put in a good performance for the last game of the season when they didn't want to win the wooden spoon. But, I've always rated Jason Riles. I like Jason Riles as a bloke. I loved him as a player. Coached him at the Origin level, but I've kept in contact with him over the years. He's been in Melbourne Storm. He's had a great mentor down there. He went to the Roosters for a year under Rowanson. He's well educated.
He's been in rugby.
He's sort of done the rounds, and he just thought, well, I need to try my luck in the NRL, and he's taken on a big club. Parramatta's a big club.
But he's going to get what he wants.
A big task. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They got all that.
What do you reckon the Jason Riles coach team will look like?
I think it'll be defensively minded, which they need. It'll be well structured. Towards the end of his tenure there at the Melbourne Storm, he had a lot of responsibility in the coaching ranks. Craig Bellamy had delegated a lot of the roles to him. From what I understand, he's really good one-on-one, and he's really good at developing younger players and giving them a mindset. I think in the first trial where they played the other day, it showed that they've had a good off-season physically. He's gone out and bought some younger players. He hasn't really rushed out into the market panicking to replace some of the senior players. He lost Campbell Gillard and Gutherson and those types. It'll be a young team, probably fly under the radar a little bit. I'm not sure that people are predicting a great bounce back from Parramatta this year. New coach, new players, and lost a lot of experience. But it's kind of, I think that will suit him a little bit. I don't think the expectations are all that high. And
there's still the Dylan Brown question mark hovering there, isn't there? That never, when you've got a key player like that, not sure about his future, doesn't help.
Yeah, well, they've got to fix that. You can't have your marquee players, and particularly your playmakers, having options to get out of the club every couple of years.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. You can't give up that much just to negotiate to get them in the short term. But that's something they've got to rectify. But in Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown, the two young halves or not two young halves, but they're two experienced halves who played plenty of football together, and that's they
want that off the books, don't they? I mean, you don't want Brown deciding halfway through the year he's leaving.
No.
Well, that throws a real spanner in the works.
They've got to get those options out of their contract. That's what they've got to do. Whether that costs them money or negotiation, or I don't know how the contracts are structured. But in January they put Dylan Brown on the market.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
everyone was saying he was signed till 2032 or something or other. All of a sudden he's on the market in 2026. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But Parramatta, I think it's a big challenge for Jason Riles first up. But the good part is that I think generally there's not a great expectation of a huge bounce back for them. It'll be interesting to see how they go, but it's the start of a new look Parramatta side, a new era. So wish them well. Do I see them as top 8 contenders? I think there's probably better credential teams around at the moment.
Mind you, the halfback's taken his game to a whole new level, hasn't he?
Well, he's the Origin halfback.
He's elite now.
Yeah, no, he is. And, between him and Dylan Brown, they can do things. I mean, they've got some really other good players there. I think Campbell Gillard's a huge loss. I just didn't understand that. A lot of pressure there on Junior Paulo and a couple of young forwards there. But defensively, 713, that's more than just structure, that's attitude and everything as well, and they need to get that right. So a big challenge for the coach and the players. Who else we got here? North Queensland Cowboy.
Yes, this is another interesting one.
So they finished 5th last year. The defensive record was reasonable, 568. It's sort of getting up there. I thought there were some games where they disappointed themselves in defence a little bit. In the player market, John Bateman is an interesting one from the West Tigers. Carl Lawton, Kai O'Donnell, Jackson Paulo, so they've gone for some sort of mid-range players there. They lost the boy to the Dolphins, Kulikefu. Jake Granville retired. Valentine Holmes has gone. Jermaine Tanua-Brown and Chad Townsend's gone. So they've lost some experience there, but they've always got good young kids coming through. So far as the experience in their roster, North Queensland last year started the year with 2,276 games of NRL experience. This year they've dropped to 2,000, so they've dropped to nearly 300 games in NRL experience, but some good young players coming through. And it's hard to know with North Queensland.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Jake Clifford's the half-back there now.
Yeah.
Townsend gone. Now, the other, Helam Lukey's injured again, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is it an ACL?
I don't know.
I think it's long term. Stand by.
Did that happen in the off season?
Yeah. ACL.
Yeah.
So December. So, he's gone most of the year.
Yeah. And having let Kulikefu go to the Dolphins too.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably want that decision over again. Yeah, I can't say they've been too active in the player market. They're relying a lot on development and what they've got. And they have some performances sometimes where you think they could win a comp, and then there's some performances other times where you just shake your head and don't know. There's an inconsistency with them there. They're kind of borderline everything. They're kind of borderline attack, borderline defence.
Borderline personality disorder.
Yeah, but they managed to win 15 games last year, and they finished in the top 5. They're one of those teams that are just below top 4 level, I think. I think they're a finals chance, but not a premiership chance, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, still got those old, Cotter and Taumalolo, the Warhorses, and Nane in the back row.
Yeah,
interesting to see what Bateman does.
It's an interesting signing. I don't know how that took place. Yeah, it was obviously wasn't a great ending to his West Tigers career.
No,
because he went home to England, didn't he? Then he came back. He was under contract. He wasn't under contract, and now he finds himself at the Cowboys. And he's an experienced campaigner. He's competitive. Like he'll bring competitive nature to the team. The Cowboys are a sort of wait and see. Dearden is the strength of that side, I think.
Yeah, he's been super. Reece Robson's signed with the Roosters from next season, 2026.
Yeah, that's going to be a loss to them. Yeah, Cowboys, I just don't know which way it goes there. A definite top 8 contender. Premiership, probably no. I don't see them up with the top sides.
3 left. Then we'll go through the New South Wales Cup and the NRLW. No.
Manly Seagulls. Manly Seagulls. Okay. Well, they finished top 6 last year. They beat the Bulldogs in the first semi-final and then sort of got lapped the next week by the Roosters. It was a reasonable season for them. Gains. This year they've gained Michael Cheekham, Chris Patolo, Siwa Tokiaho has come back from England. He's been injured. Jazz Tavunga's an interesting signing. Joe Walsh, a young rugby halfback, got a lot of time for Joe.
And Matt Lodge too.
And Matt Lodge has finally made a...
Yep.
They've lost Condon, Humphreys, Lawton. Yeah, so it's like for like. They haven't really had a huge change to the major part of their roster coming into this season. Obviously got a very experienced side. Manly... in games last year were the second most experienced side in the competition at 2,600, and this year they are the most experienced team leading into 2025. 2,882 games of rugby league experience in their roster. 2,882 games of rugby league experience. Number 1 in the league leading into this year. So they won't lose on the score of inexperience.
Well, their spine is vastly experienced.
Yeah.
And Croker missed a lot of last year.
Yes.
Lachlan Croker.
Yeah.
He should be back fit.
Yeah. They've got some good young kids I think will break into first grade at some stage during the year, but they've got the smarts, they've got the strike power. Cherry Evans, he's an evergreen. I just can't believe he's still going around with the football and the physicality he has at this age.
Might be his last year.
It could well be, which is a further incentive for them to do well. Manly, as a club, they're a good, tough, old-fashioned footy club. They're always in and about. Seabold's now found his feet as an NRL coach. Always hard to beat. Plenty of experience. Top 8 contender. Premiership.
If they keep Turbo fit all year, can they challenge?
Well, that's the X factor. If he is fit all year. But do I see them matching the top sides? No.
Okay.
No, I think they're probably finals. I think you got to lock them in for finals, but I don't think you could. I don't predict them as a premiership winner.
There's 2 left.
2 teams. St George Illawarra Dragon.
The only team in the comp that's bought more players than you. Jesus. And he's bought some quality. Cook, Holmes, Gutho.
Yeah. So Dragons,
experience.
a month out from the finals last year, Dragons were going to make the finals. Their last month was pretty disappointing. Still conceded over 634 points. That's where
they?
Yeah.
Wow.
600. Well, that was their big thing. They won big or lost big.
They did, didn't they?
There was nothing in between.
Yeah.
I don't think they had too many close games.
No,
they won big or they lost big. It was rather extraordinary. 634 minus 126 for and against. Yet a month out from the finals, they looked like certainty to play finals. They just fell at the last few hurdles. They won 11 games last year. There was an improvement on what they'd shown in previous years. Roster-wise, well, it's been significant. Damien Cook's come in. Emre Gula recently. Clint Gutherson. Valentine Holmes. Lachlan Ilias. So some really good buys there. Some experience in those buys. Losses. Jack Bird, Max Fagay, Ben Hunt, Zach Lomax, Jesse Marshy, Dan Russell, Tamale. So the big losses are Jack Bird, Ben Hunt and Zach Lomax. Most of their try scoring last year was created around Ben Hunt, and the bloke scoring most of the tries and most of the points was Zach Lomax. Now, Zach Lomax, I think Valentine Holmes cancels that out. Zach Lomax, I thought, was a huge loss, but Valentine Holmes cancels that out from both a point scoring creation and experience point of view. The halves is interesting. He's going to replace Ben Hunt, one of the most experienced in the game, with young Lachlan Ilias, who's coming off an injury at South Sydney. I think it would have been difficult for a young halfback to replace Adam Reynolds at South Sydney. I think that was to come into that spine with Damien Cook and Cody Walker and Latrell. I think it would have been hard and daunting for a young player, and I thought he made a good fist of it.
Especially given they released Reynolds knowing that Ilias was there as his replacement.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know why he suddenly fell out of favour, found himself in reserve grade, then got a bad leg injury. I think if he doesn't get the bad leg injury, he'd have got back into first grade with them because they needed a halfback. So he's a steady Eddie sort of player. He's not brilliant, but he's steady Eddie. He can manage a team. He's got good kicking game. He's a solid defender. He's got the ability to break the line. I mean, he's still got his development in front of him. And that might be all he needs to be with that Dragons side. The Dragons have got size. Have you seen how big they are?
They're massive.
They're just a massively big...
Did you see the size of Luciano Leilua?
Yeah. They're huge.
Yeah.
They're just a big side. Right across the field, they're a big side. But I don't know what the switch is there. Like some days they win by 40 and they lose by 40, and you can't... sometimes on the same day. They can be brilliant for 20 minutes and then just horrible for 20 minutes, So, look, I rated them a top 8 chance last year and everyone sort of laughed at it. Well, with a month to go, they were going to make the 8. They just fell at the final hurdles. I think they're going to be a little bit better.
With Gutho and Cook, they've got to be more consistent naturally, organically.
Competitiveness, control, consistency, I think, is the key. Consistency of effort, consistency of intensity, not falling out of games when things are going away from you. I think that's one of the real features of Clint Gutherson is his fighting qualities, his in intensity. He doesn't give up. He doesn't give up on anything, and he keeps his team in the contest. And if he can do that for the Dragons, they've got the talent to score points, and that makes them dangerous. I think they're a top 8 contender. I don't see them as a premiership contender, but they're a top 8 contender along with another 12 or 13 teams there in the middle of the roster. I'll keep repeating, Melbourne, Penrith. Wait to see what happens with the Broncos. Sharks are definite top 4. The rest, there's not much between them. But the Dragons are top 8 contenders, no risk. And they're a big team. I'll be surprised if they're not the biggest team in the league. The biggest team. Where were they last year? Last year they had 2,200 games of NRL experience. This year they've got 2,600. They've improved by 400 games of NRL experience with, Holmes and Gutherson and Damien Cook coming into the roster. And that should serve them well. It should stop the inconsistency. It should stop the bad days.
What do you think about Sloan on the wing?
No.
That's what's going to happen.
Why?
Sloan's playing on the wing, Gutho's playing fullback.
Right. No. Anyway, see what happens.
Why not? I mean, but Flanagan has explained it, that it's getting Gutherson in. It's not a blow for Sloan. And Sloan himself has admitted that it's an educational thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he bristled initially, but he seems to have come to terms with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure wing will suit him, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's up to them.
There we go. Here's the last one. Oh, it's Melbourne.
Melbourne Storm.
We couldn't have planned that any better.
Premiership favourites.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Melbourne Storm. It is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Christian Welsh retired, but they've got Stefano who's joined the club.
Yeah, they can always find a player, can't they? Where are we? Melbourne. So player market. Stefano Atukamano comes in. They've signed a young fellow called Moses Leo from New Zealand Rugby. Chris Lewis, Tepai Marawa, Aaron Payne and young Tonema Pia. So they've released fringe players. They've brought in Stefano Atukamano. Otherwise, it's the same roster that played in the grand final last year. Mm-hmm. Not beaten by much. I mean, grand final, what was the final score? 14-6 or something like that. But it felt like 40. Like it felt like they were never in the contest. And I think they walked away from it admitting that they've just got a lot of ground to make up on that side, the Panthers. People predicting the Panthers will come off a little bit with the players they've lost, Fisher Harris and Jerome Luai. I still think they'll accommodate. But on the score of things, just so far as consistency of roster, proven performance, coach, everything we know about the Melbourne Storm, it's probably their competition to lose. I think they're worthy premiership favourites. They're not going to lose it because the coach doesn't know what he's doing. They're not going to lose because they haven't got the right players. They've got the right players. Munster and Hughes and Pappenhausen and Harry Grant. Crikey, what a side. They're bringing young Stefano Atukamanu, who, like most players who go to Melbourne, will probably go to a different level. They could beat a lot of teams hopping on one leg. They can hop on one leg and make the finals. They can, they'll be top 4. I don't think there's anything going to stop that. It's just fitting well and getting it done right at grand final time, and the coach does that. That's what he does. They're in second last year, beaten in the grand final by the champions who won 4 in a row. And for me, only probably the Sharks and Broncos can upset that grand final duo again. Otherwise, we'll see Melbourne and Penrith go around again in the grand final this year.
And Canterbury. But you won't say that. All right. Season predictions. Melbourne to win it, you're saying?
No.
Oh, Penrith to win it?
I still think Penrith will beat them on their day.
Jeez, 5 in a row? We could be sitting here in 5 years' time and they might not have lost.
Well, they're an extraordinary group. Oh, look, it's the Storm's premiership to lose. There's nothing between them. Naturally, we think because of Fisher, Harris and Luai go, maybe that takes the Panthers off a little bit more. I think Melbourne are favourites to win the competition.
It was something I learned. I mean, I kind of knew, but it was really obvious last year. Penrith sort of, at times, they stopped and started throughout the year, but they just knew, just get to the finals in the top 4 and we'll just get it done. Yeah. And that's what they did.
Well, it's a confidence born of demonstrated ability. I love that that saying? Confidence born of demonstrated ability. When you've done it so often and you know how to do it, it just gives you a confidence to do it again. What they did grand final day was near football excellence.
Amazing.
They got to the front and never even tried to score another point. They just knew they had Melbourne's measure. And you're talking about Melbourne with Harry Grant, Jerome Hughes, Cameron Munster and Pappenhausen, 4 of the best playmakers in the game, the best spine in the game. And they just arrogantly said, not on our watch. Yeah. It's not going to happen. And Melbourne never looked like scoring another try in the game once Penrith got to the front.
They kind of surged a bit after half time, Melbourne. And they had there was a no try there too, wasn't there? What was the no try? There was a no try.
Oh, you got held up over the line. Well,
Yes.
They didn't score a point in the second half.
That's right. All right, Melbourne.
But Melbourne are favourites to win the Premiership. Penrith, Shark, with a question mark over the Bronco, as the likely contenders.
And your real smokies, the West Tigers.
West Tigers will make the 8.
Oh, Dally M.
It's too hard. Dally M, Jerome Hughes, Munster, Pappenhausen, one of them off fellas.
So I was asked just to throw in my long-range predictions, and I just pluck one straight out of my blurter.
Yeah.
Luke Metcalf.
Yeah.
Lachlan
Galvin.
Because Dally M winners are the standout players in, they don't always have to be a top team.
Yeah.
Well, big improvers, I suppose you've named the West Tigers. Anyone else come to mind?
Big improvers.
South.
Yeah, look, Dolphin is the other one I think will make the 8.
Okay.
I think that they're a real chance of making the 8. Dragons can make the 8. I think everyone will sort of improve. Titans are the ones I've got a question mark on because it's a better roster than what they show. I think for the other sides, like your Roosters and your Manlys and your Cowboys that have sort of been in the round, your Knights, they've been in and around the 8 for a few years. See, last year, the top 8 in 2023, 4 of those teams missed the 8 in 2024. It was a big turnover. And I can see similar this year.
Me too, yeah.
I think there can be a big turnover outside of Storm, Panthers, Sharks. Broncos, well, they got the potential to win it. They got the potential to miss the 8 too. We just, we've got to wait and see what happens with them. I think Sharks are the team that will be there all year and trying to improve their finals campaign. Roosters, they're in a development phase and where they're going there. Raiders, Dolphins, I think, can make the 8. Dragons can make the leap. Broncos can make the leap back into the 8. So we could see some changes around the top 8 this year, but I think, Storm, Panthers, Sharks, and question mark on Broncos. Broncos should be there.
And the last question I have on this rundown. Player you're most excited to watch this year?
Player I'm most excited to watch? Lachlan Galvin. See how he goes with Jerome Hughes. Jerome Luai. They're at the West Tigers.
I texted a mate of mine who's a rabid West Tigers fan yesterday. I said, you need to sign Lachlan Galvin for 15 years.
Well, yeah. I think in the future, whoever's got Lachlan Galvin in their sides will be winning premierships. That's and I'm not even worried about putting raps on the kid. He's probably the most exciting young playmaker I've seen coming through in a long time, and I'm obsessed with him. I love watching him play.
I hope you're enjoying Vegas.
Loving it.
Have a great time.
Yep.
Come home in one piece, and we'll be with you.
I'm off to Cirque du Soleil tonight.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Via the blackjack table. Just remember, always split aces. We'll be recording 6 Tackles with Gus every Wednesday morning, and you'll be out Wednesday right throughout the season for 2025. Look forward to your company then.